We believe that you are strong by design, and you were made in God's image to have a strong body, mind, and spirit. You're listening to the #1 Strength and Health Authority podcast in the world. So let's get ready to unlock your potential and transform your life in today's episode. Hi there, and welcome to another episode of the Strong by Design podcast. I'm your host today, Coach Chris Wilson, and have a terrific guest, somebody that I've had on the show before. Actually, he, along with his counterparts, were on the show early in the year, but we're doing something a little different today. We're just talking with Sal from Mind Pump, but I want to do you listeners justice with introducing him. And if you're not familiar with Sal Di Stefano or with Mind Pump, to help you along here a little bit, because they are a big presence in the world of podcasting. They've been #1 in fitness for a long time and have a healthy amount of content in the podcast world. So before I get to a proper introduction for Sal, I do want to just take a quick moment to say thank you so much for choosing our show, Strong by Design. It means a lot to us that you have made us one of your favorite podcasts, hopefully, or if you're new to our show, welcome. Thank you so much. We talk about everything here. And we do ask that at the end of this episode, if you found you really enjoyed it, that you would share this conversation with somebody who needs to hear it, who can benefit from this information, a friend or a family member. And of course, we would love it if you could hit that 5-star rating and give us a review. That really helps our show become more visible, lets all the powers that be know that we're worth listening to. So, and people do read those reviews. They mean a lot. So thank you for that in advance. So our guest today, Mr. Sal Di Stefano, best known as the co-founder of Mind Pump Media, and he's co-host of the #1 fitness podcast, Mind Pump, close to 1,600 episodes right now, which is pretty fantastic. I was listening to a show on the way in today. He does the show along with co-hosts Adam Schafer and Justin Andrews, and the man behind the scenes, Doug Egge, who actually he and Sal together are kind of the brains, if you will, behind MPM as it is, starting it up. Sal has dedicated much of his life to inspiring others to be healthy, fit, and strong. He's a former skinny guy turned personal trainer. It's funny because your timeline reads a lot like mine. He then became general manager of a gym and a wellness center owner. Later, he designed the MAPS program. It's a fitness product, muscular adaptation programming system, which has a lot of parts to it, and I'm sure that'll come up in conversation. And of course, Mind Pump Media was born soon after. Mind Pump has over 20 million downloads, which is fantastic. It's a big number in the world of podcasts. Sal is a top-rated radio and podcast host, and now the author of The Resistance Training Revolution, which is what we're going to be talking about today. He is truly the embodiment of all things health, fitness, and well-being. And by the way, he's also a husband and a good father, which I know is super important to him, and as it is to me. So that's something I wanted to leave in everyone's mind, that we are of the same mind when it comes to not only helping people in their fitness, but also in their family life, and being strong for yourself helps you be strong for others. So Sal, thank you so much for being on Strong by Design today, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on, Chris. Thanks for the intro. That was really nice.
Of course, my pleasure. For our listeners who aren't maybe familiar with you because they've been living on Mars or Venus or don't listen to podcasts at all, I want a little backstory from you, just a few moments or minutes, if you could share where your passion for optimizing your own health and fitness comes from. Just based on those events that took place in your 20s, late 20s, when you yourself were going through some turmoil, if you will, or some challenges with your physical health.
Yeah, no, I'll love to get into that. Real quick, though, I do want to comment on the 20 20 million download statistics. Actually, closer to 77 million downloads. Yeah, that's an old statistic. So we've got
that's a really old. What the heck was I looking at?
Yeah, so we've got quite a bit more. But I started working out as a kid. I was 14 years old. I started working out in the backyard, and my dad had a weight set, and I fell in love with it instantly. I think, looking back, of course, hindsight's 20/20. But looking back, fitness really is a unassuming kind of, for lack of a better term, sneaky way of personal growth, right? Without realizing, like you go into it and you think, I want to look better or lose weight. But really what you're embarking on is a wonderful way to grow as a person, because through the years of going through fitness, you learn to deal with failure and challenge. You start to accept your limitations. You learn lessons like practice makes perfect, and doing things over and over is the best way to get them. And you also become kind of growth minded. It really does bleed over into the rest of your life, whether it's building a business or having a successful family. Through fitness, you learn to focus on the things you can control and ignore the things that you can't. So I started working out very young. By the time I was 18, by this point, I had just really solidified my passion for exercise and fitness. And I walked into the local 24-hour fitness gym and became a personal trainer. Shortly thereafter, I was managing the fitness department. Then I was managing gyms and grand opening some of their big boxes. Then I opened my wellness studio. And I did that at the age of, I believe I was 23 or 24 when I did that. And you mentioned kind of that health crisis that I had in my late 20s, early 30s. Up until that point, I was really the quintessential personal trainer. I understood resistance training and cardio and flexibility. I understood macros, proteins, fats, carbs, and calories. But I really wasn't a wellness person. Now, I had a wellness studio. And in my studio, besides myself and other personal trainers, I also had a gut, health specialist and a physical therapist and someone who did hormone testing. I had an acupuncturist in there, a massage therapist. So I understood the value of other modalities, and I did understand that health really was a sphere that encompassed much more than just exercise and eating the right amount of calories and macros. But I didn't really understand it fully until I had to apply it to myself. And so in my late 20s, early 30s, I really started to develop really bad gut health issues. And I couldn't figure out what the problem was. Doctors couldn't figure out what the problem was. I was losing strength, losing muscle. And at this point, and this was over the course of months, I thought maybe I'm developing an autoimmune issue. What's going on? And finally, out of desperation, I turned to the people that worked in my studio that were, gut health and hormone health specialists. And I said, I give up. I think I'm healthy. I think I understand fitness and health, but obviously what I'm doing is not working. What should I do? And I followed their advice. I followed their lead. I did some gut health testing. I took some, herbal antimicrobials. I tested myself for food intolerances, eliminated certain foods. I also took my focus completely off of my performance and aesthetics, which had driven my training for up until that point, right? Up until that point, I was almost entirely concerned with how I looked, how strong I was in the gym. But I got rid of that, and I focused entirely on my health. Was my health improving? Did I feel better? And through that process, it took me about a year to fully, I guess, heal. And I still, to this day, by the way, still have to toggle between, dealing with gut health issues and managing them. But it took me about a year to get to the point where I am now. And at the end of that year, there was a moment where I actually, for the first time, paid attention to my appearance in the mirror. I actually looked at my aesthetics, and I realized that I actually looked better than I ever had in my entire life. And I did so by focusing on my health. And that's when I realized that, focusing on your health and optimizing your health in the true sense, in the whole sense, will give you a great deal of the aesthetics that you're looking for. Focusing on aesthetics, on the other hand, oftentimes results in poor health. And then, of course, the downstream effect is you lose the aesthetics. Nobody looks good when they're unhealthy, or at least they don't look good for very long. So that really molded the voice and the message that you hear me speak on the podcast on Mind Pump. Now, today, this is 7 years in, almost 7 years of hosting the Mind Pump podcast. And, I started that podcast because after training people for 2 decades, I wanted to find a more effective way of reaching more people, of communicating the message of health and fitness in effective ways to just more and more people. I mean, I was definitely impacting the people that I worked with, but, podcasting has the ability to reach so many more. Of course, I met my co-hosts, Adam and Justin, and we all had very, very similar ideas in terms of how fitness should be communicated, how to present it, our goals, who we would cater to, who we weren't going to cater to. For example, with podcasting, it's a very low barrier to enter the space, so we didn't have to sell any products or twist our integrity to in order to fit a particular mold, like you did back in the day when you were in let's say a fitness magazine. You had to, at the end of your column, had to say, please take these supplements or whatever, and it was very freeing. And so we just went for it, and it resonated. And like we said earlier, the podcast has done very well, and we have a large audience of everyday people. It's about equal split, 50-50 men to women, who are interested in improving their fitness and health. And then we also have a very large segment of our audience that are coaches and personal trainers. That's the part that I'm most proud of, because if you look at the modern health issues, the chronic health issues that plague modern societies, Western medicine really doesn't have any solutions. There's a lot of symptom treatments, but there's no solutions for things like heart disease and diabetes and dementia, Alzheimer's, and chronic inflammatory issues. But the fitness and health space has the solutions. It really does have the solutions for these modern health issues. And the people that are really making the biggest change and impact are the coaches and trainers. If you look at the whole health and fitness space, and we were to look at the whole thing and say, okay, who's really making the real impact? And when I say real, I mean lifelong, like helping people achieve lifelong success with exercise and nutrition, developing good relationships with health and fitness. It's coaches and trainers. And so the fact that we have such a large audience of coaches and trainers really is what I would say, most proud of. And so that takes us to where we're at now. Go ahead.
No, it's great to have a following of your peers. In essence, you're the voice for a lot of people that aren't willing to put themselves out there, who don't desire to put themselves out there, but still are yearning for that presence, learning for, listening for the support or the confirmation of why they do things the way they do them or think a certain way. So they, it's a lot of like-minded people. And there's pretty much nowhere you guys aren't willing to go on your show, putting out an episode almost daily. And like I've said, 1,600 episodes or darn near close to that. That's a lot of different conversations.
Yeah.
And so, people can scroll through there and find just about anything that they're looking for, and get some different insights based on your perspective and, Adam's perspective, Justin's perspective, which I think gives them a really good 360-degree look at things.
Yeah, when you hear us talk on the show, first off, all the lessons that we learned, I think that make us good at what we do, we learned through training people for 2 decades. So I'll give you an example. You mentioned how many podcasts we do on a daily basis or a weekly basis. We do 5 episodes a week. There's a reason why we do that. One of the lessons you learn from training people and even just training yourself is really the only way to get good at something is to do it often and to practice it, right? So when we first started the podcast, we were experienced trainers but we were also very inexperienced media personalities. We had no media experience whatsoever. So we said, all right, look, here's the deal. We have a lot of fun, but we're obviously going to suck because we've never done this before. Let's podcast a lot. Let's do this so that we get good faster. And that's exactly what happened. The second thing is, and this again we learned from training people, I must communicate as a trainer. I must have communicated, fat loss a million different ways to the same person, over the years. If I trained someone for 5 years, I guarantee I talked about fat loss and how to lose body fat, at least a million different times. Now, why is that important to understand? Well, because these are not simple messages. It's not a simple caption or a 5-minute video. I could tell you in 30 seconds how to lose weight, but obviously that doesn't work for most people. Podcasting gives us this long form platform, so we get to have conversation and we get to talk about it in many, many different ways, use different analogies, and at some point it connects and it makes a difference. And somebody says, okay, that makes a lot of sense, I'm going to try that. And then they get that kind of permanent success, because that's what we're after. I don't care about getting someone to lose weight. I care about getting them to lose weight and then keep it off forever.
That's right.
People lose weight all the time. Millions of Americans lose weight all the time. So all those lessons we learned through training people is, here's another one. Like when you listen to our show, in 3 of our 5 episodes, these are these kind of Q&A episodes, and the way we open the episode is like a 45-minute conversation about current events and studies and stuff that happened. And oftentimes the intro has nothing to do with fitness. We don't get to the fitness till after the intro, and then we answer fitness questions and then break down, fitness stuff. Now, why do we do that? Well, here's the deal. We know we'd reach more people if we had an entertainment component, if people wanted to listen because it was fun to listen to. I learned this as a trainer. If I train somebody for 3 years, the reason why they keep showing up, besides the fact that I'm a good trainer and all that stuff, is because they want to see me. They want to see me. They want to hang out. If it wasn't like that, I would have lost clients, a year or 2 in. So we did that on purpose so that we could attract more people and make more of an impact. Because one of the mistakes I think a lot of people in our space make is that we tend to be in this echo chamber where we're talking to just each other, but we're not doing a good job of reaching outside of that. Even if you look at the gym industry, the gym industry penetrates the market like something like 20%, and then they trade members. And there's like this huge segment of the population that never steps foot in a gym, never really exercises consistently, and nobody is touching them. Nobody's really reaching them. So the goal is, can we reach the unreachable? Can we get to the average person? Can we shift the fitness industry so that it's more effective, so that it communicates the right things in ways that are more appealing than the wrong things that tend to be sold in very appealing ways? We're competing with the lose 30 pounds in 30 days by taking my diet pill guy. Well, the only way I'm going to beat him or her is by communicating the right thing, but doing it in a more effective, more appealing way. I have to sell my idea better than they sell that idea, the wrong idea. And that's hard because they're saying lose 30 pounds in 30 days. I'm telling you it might take you a year or 2. So how the hell do I do that? Well, it takes some skill, and it's something that's it's important to us.
Our team would like to thank you so much for listening to the Strong by Design podcast. And if you're enjoying today's show, please share this episode with at least one friend or family member who will benefit from this message. And please subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Go to strongbydesignpodcast.com. That's strongbydesignpodcast.com. Let's get back to the show.
The truth hurts in all areas of our life. And oftentimes people avoid the truth because what's on the other side is a lot more gratifying, or at least, it's quick gratification. No one wants to hear, geez, the only way for me to really lose 10 to 15 pounds of fat is to just eat really clean and track and log all the food that's going in my system and lose like 1 pound a week for the next, 15 weeks. But that's how you do it. It's how you do it effectively, and that's how you're actually losing fat and not something else. But the long play is always typically the right way to go, but it's not what people want to hear. But like you said, if you have that conversation in different ways, and it's entertaining, people are. It's just going to get in there. It's going to get in their head, and they're going to start to buy in a little bit easier, I think. I want to touch on one thing that you had said earlier it can be very confusing for people when they see someone who on the outside looks extremely fit, but that's not necessarily the case. If you really looked at their internal health, their addictions, their patterns, the things that they're doing behind the scenes, it can be. Again, I'm talking about the Instagram and influencers and these people out there who have a great following, but yet, oftentimes you see this in the land of bodybuilding, where you see these people that are absolutely, have bodies that look like they're sculpted out of marble, but yet their health, and then a lot of times these people don't have very long lives either. Yeah, just touch on that for another brief moment, just because I think it's just worth noting to people that you don't need to be 5% body fat or 6%. In fact, that's unhealthy, by the way, to be that low for an extended period of time. But just touch on that a little bit more, if you would.
Yeah, I said earlier that health is a sphere, and I mean that. And, look, I'll tell you, this is true, by the way. There are more bad relationships with diet and exercise, more eating disorders in the fitness space than there are outside of the fitness space. Okay, a lot of people who get into fitness as a profession do so because they have an obsession, and oftentimes it's rooted in some kind of insecurity. Now, if they stick to it long enough and they do a good job, eventually they kind of come out of it, and then they're really good at what they do because they understand what it feels like to be very insecure about how they look, and they make really, really good coaches and trainers. But oftentimes, that's what you see. Here's the deal. I'll give you an example. There was a study out of Stanford that showed that having poor relationships with the people around you was as bad for your health as smoking a pack of cigarettes. Okay? So you can be physically fit, lean and muscular, and have good physical performance and still have poor health. You could have poor health with the people around you. You could be obsessed. You could be the kind of person who, because they have to eat perfectly all the time, doesn't go to birthday parties, doesn't hang out with friends, doesn't visit family. Somebody who's utterly obsessed with how they look. That's also not healthy. There's also
and you and I know these people firsthand.
Oh yeah. And there's also I could also get away with appearing like the physical ideal because either I abuse drugs or plastic surgery, I over diet or obsess about exercise, but at some point that actually starts to backfire. At some point we start to see not only diminishing returns, but we start to see poor health. But really, okay, so, and the reason why I'm communicating this isn't necessarily to say, look at those people, screw them, but rather don't idolize people simply because of how they look. Now, why is that a mistake? Well, besides the fact that it's not accurate, if we look at exercise and nutrition and value it 100% for how it makes you look, you're never going to develop a good long-term relationship with it. It just won't work. We have to look at all the values that exercise and nutrition provide us and really understand them so we can develop a good long-term balanced relationship. Because one of the problems with just being focused on appearance is that if this is you, then you tend to fall in this category where you're on this diet and you're really strict, and then you fall off, and then you binge and you eat terribly, or you exercise real consistently and at some point you hate it, and then you stop for 3 months, 6 months, or for years. So if you find yourself having no balance, it's probably or likely because you're only valuing exercise and nutrition for appearance. There's so much more that comes from it. Like let's just look at diet, for example. Your food. I can't tell you how many times I would have a client who would, I would talk to them about their health, and they would say something like, oh yeah, I have heartburn most days, but I take heartburn medication.
Prilosec.
Yeah, but they have no idea that what they're eating could be causing the heartburn, because to them, food is all about does it taste good, or does it taste good and does it make me look fat? Not realizing that it can affect their digestion, how inflamed they are, their energy, how they connect with people, and so they have this very unbalanced or imbalanced relationship. So, Yeah, it's definitely important to understand that. And are there balanced people in fitness that also look good? Definitely. But
Sure.
that's not the only criteria. The only criteria is not to look a particular way. So be very careful with who you follow and whose advice you take. I would say if I had to develop a kind of a litmus test, is this person, do they have an education in health and fitness? And then are they experienced training lots of people just like you? You know, so if if you're an athlete and you're looking for athletic performance, does this person train a lot of athletes? If you're an everyday average person and you just want to, get fit and healthy, does this person train a lot of people like you? Or do they only train bodybuilders? If they only coach and train bodybuilders, I can promise you this, their advice is going to be very, very not valuable. It will be very unvaluable for the average person because they only know how to communicate to those kinds of people. So pay attention to those things, and that'll help you kind of sift through the noise to find the right kind of information.
Yeah, without question. That's good advice. So this book now that you have, I think I'm seeing part of it behind you.
Yeah, you are.
What was the inspiration? Well, actually, before we get to, what was the inspiration for the resistance training revolution? I want you to share with you had an Instagram post a while back. I want you to share your frustrations with the voice of the medical system at large. And you had touched on it a little bit earlier when we were talking about kind of like treating symptoms instead of dealing with root cause of issues. Some of the advice that comes out of the medical system and that people are following kind of blindly.
Yeah, well, there's a lot. It's easier to treat a symptom. It's also very profitable to do so versus finding a solution for the root cause, because oftentimes the solution for the root cause of an issue is multi-pronged, complex, and requires changes in behavior. So rather than, if I have insomnia and my symptom is I can't sleep very well, it's easier to develop a pill that I can take that knocks me out than it is for me to say, okay, we have to look at your caffeine intake, your stress, your light exposure, your electronic use at night. Like all these different things. They require so many changes in behavior.
Yeah. And
people tend to not do those things, and people tend to also want just the pill. So, and it's a market like any other market, so it meets the consumer demand. And so that's the whole deal with it. Now, in regards to exercise, there's a big problem with the health, the medical health community and exercise, mainly because one of the strengths of Western medicine is also its weakness. Like one of the strengths is everything has to be backed by research and science, very, very rigorous study, double-blind, placebo-controlled trials, right? That's a good thing because it's about as objective as it can get. That's about probably the best way to test whether or not something works or not. The problem with it is oftentimes they're behind because they're not able to test certain things, and so their advice is not as good as, let's say, somebody who's got lots and lots of experience with exercise who might have better advice. So I'll give you an example. For decades, the only studies that were done on exercise and health, if you looked up studies that said, how does exercise affect cholesterol or blood pressure or obesity or Alzheimer's, for decades, the only forms of exercise that were studied were cardiovascular exercise. 30 minutes of cardiovascular exercise was typically what they studied. There's a couple reasons for this. One is it's easy to get a hamster or a rat to run on a hamster wheel, so it's easy to see that. So animal studies are easy. But also because other forms of exercise were kind of not as well known and were more relegated to athletic performance. Like there were no studies done on strength training or resistance training for health. All the studies were on athletic performance. Well, more recently, I'd say the last couple decades, but definitely the last 10 years, we're starting to see studies done on strength training and resistance training and health. And what we're finding is what all of us trainers have seen working with people. That in the context of modern life, working with the average person, so the average person has a sedentary life, very busy, but also, of course, not very active, is around very easily accessible, hyperpalatable food. That person who typically probably will never work out more than 2 days a week if we're lucky. So if we're lucky, we might be able to get them to work out a couple days a week. They're not going to do structured exercise every single day. That's a pipe dream. It's not going to happen for the average person. In that context, the studies are now very clear that not only is strength training or resistance training a great form of exercise for health, it's actually superior to other forms of exercise. There was a study that came out of Sydney, Australia, that showed that strength training or resistance training was, so far to date, it's the only form of exercise that's been shown to stop the progression of Alzheimer's. I mean, this blew the researchers away. It's like they'd never seen anything like this. Other forms of exercise helped and slowed things down, but no form of exercise stopped the progression. In fact, by the end of the study, they said it might even look like it was reversing. This is probably, by the way, due to the muscle-building effects of strength training. Muscle is very insulin sensitive. In fact, it's the easiest way to improve your insulin sensitivity. I mean, studies even show that if you take someone who's severely obese and do nothing else but have them build muscle, even if they don't lose a single pound, they just build a little bit of muscle, you see improvements in insulin sensitivity. Again, because muscle is very insulin sensitive. What does this have to do with Alzheimer's and dementia? Both, all these kind of cognitive decline disorders oftentimes are referred to as type 3 diabetes. There's a strong connection between these things and our inability to process and utilize glucose because of insulin resistance. So these people built muscle, and what we saw in that study was, holy cow, this is not only a very effective way to work on Alzheimer's, but it's the best one that we've seen so far.
Thank you so much for listening to the Strong by Design podcast. Our team here at Critical Bench has been making the world's #1 workout and fitness programs to help you live a life that is truly strong by design. We encourage you to visit our Amazon store at strongbydesignamazon.com for premium follow-along workouts, fitness equipment, and more. That's strongbydesignamazon.com.
Let's talk about some of the ones that we never even realized. I would never even have considered strength training to be good at, which is like heart health. You know, I recently had a cardiologist on the podcast who now he does talks around the country, and that's what he does on his talks is he tells other cardiologists, if you can get your patients to exercise, get them to lift weights or get them to do resistance training, which of course you can use body weight or resistance bands, doesn't have to be weights, because the studies are now showing it again to be superior to other forms of exercise. Probably, and this is probably why, is resistance training, the old paradigm that we've been told and sold for so long on obesity, how to solve obesity, part of it was right and part of it was wrong. And the part that was wrong was the exercise portion. And I mean, it looks something like this, right? Like, in order to lose weight, you have to create an energy imbalance. You have to take in less calories than you burn, or burn more calories than you take in. When you do that, your body, of course, needs the extra energy, and so it taps into itself, and it burns body fat in order to make that happen, in order to create that energy balance. So that part is true. Now, the part that's not true is that when we look at the energy burn side of the equation, we value exercise for its calorie burning. That's it. What form of exercise burns the most calories? Well, that's the best form of exercise. Nothing could be further from the truth. Of all the values that exercise can provide you, the least important is the calorie burn. Actually, that's the least important value that it can provide you, because the calorie burn not only is very little, even with hard cardio, it's not that much, but also because the body does a phenomenal job of adapting to that calorie burn through slowing down its metabolism, or in the example of cardio exercise, your body will actually lose muscle. It'll pare muscle down to slow your metabolism down. Cardio doesn't require much strength. Your body tries to become more efficient at cardio, and it does this by reducing muscle mass. In fact, studies will show that about roughly half of the weight that's lost when cardio is the main form of exercise is muscle.
Lean muscle mass.
Yeah, so you end up losing 10 pounds, but 5 of it is muscle. So you end up with the same body fat percentage, you're just smaller. So you're smaller, slower metabolism, same flabbiness version of yourself. And that's because, again, we've been looking at exercise and saying, how many calories does it burn? And, if it burns a lot of calories, it's very valuable. And they still sell exercise this way. Burns tons of calories. Here's a cardio machine. It burns the most calories. That's the wrong thing to look at. That is literally the least valuable thing. The most valuable thing to look at with exercise is, how does it get my body to adapt? And then what does that mean? What does that adaptation mean? Now, when we look at strength training or resistance training, and I want to be very clear, when I say strength training, resistance training, which means you can use weights, machines, bands, or body weight, it's done in a deliberate way to build strength and muscle. The reason why I have to say that is because you can grab a pair of dumbbells and do a bunch of circuit training, which is essentially the same thing as cardio. So even though using weights, you're not doing what I'm talking about, which is resistance training or strength training with these particular goals. When you do strength training as part of that formula, the adaptations you're asking your body to embark on are to build strength, build muscle. That's the main adaptation, right? The side effect of that is a faster metabolism, is a body that burns more calories all the time on its own. So I'm literally teaching my body to burn more calories rather than having to burn the calories manually myself through structured and scheduled exercise, which eventually loses its value as my body starts to adapt. So what does it look like when you do diet and cardio versus diet and resistance training? Diet and cardio results in initial weight loss, which, like I said earlier, is a good chunk of its lean body mass. And then you plateau real hard. Everybody knows that this is what they do, right? I'm going to go running, and I'm going to start cutting my calories. And they lose 10 pounds right away. And then that's it. Nothing else. So now they think, well, okay, I guess I got to run more, or I got to cut my calories even more. And then maybe they lose a little bit more weight, and then they're stuck again. And it's like, I got to do more. And eventually, obviously you can see how unsustainable this is.
Right. And it becomes very restrictive, and no one's going to stick with anything that's restrictive for more than 30 days or 60 days max, Right.
It's very unsustainable. I end up lighter, but with less muscle, a slower metabolism, and now I have to eat less than I did before. Okay. On the flip side, in the other comparison, using resistance training, the weight loss doesn't happen quite as quickly, although fat loss does. The reason why the scale doesn't move as quickly is because we tend to build muscle initially along with the fat loss. So although the scale might say 0 in terms of movement, I lost fat, built muscle. By the way, muscle's very dense. So if everybody watching this lost 10 pounds of fat and gained 10 pounds of muscle, you would be smaller. You'd still be a lot smaller. You'd be a lot tighter. And of course, you'd have a faster metabolism. So the weight loss starts off slow, but then you get this snowball effect that accelerates as the metabolism picks up steam. So eventually what that looks like is, 6 months down the line, I lost the fat that I wanted to lose, but now I can eat more than I did before. I'm actually in a better position than I was when I first started. Far more sustainable. The problem is this has not been what we've been told to do. Doctors haven't recommended this because the studies haven't been done on it, although now they're starting to, and we're starting to see some doctors recommend this. Mainstream media hasn't promoted it. In fact, mainstream media tends to say that strength training and resistance training builds big, bulky bodies, which is totally false, by the way. It's not going to...
Totally false. And the market for women has been so confused. It's even worse so than with the guys. Most guys want the muscle. Women are afraid of muscle, afraid of bulk, and kind of go the other direction from strength training, which is, not my experience.
We've done a huge disservice to women by communicating it the wrong way. They're so afraid that they're going to work out, they're going to lift weights, and then wake up tomorrow looking like a pro body, but which doesn't happen. That they've moved to such ineffective forms of exercise for their goals. Again, most people's goals are fat loss, improvements of health, and most people, again, want to work out a few days a week. That they end up stopping. They end up going through this process of losing weight, gaining weight, losing weight, gaining weight, and finding that every single time they go through, it's harder and harder because they end up slowing the metabolism down more and more. By the way, this is proven. So this isn't just my speculation. They've done, and I quote this in the book, there's a great study that they did on a modern hunter-gatherer tribe. It's called the Hadza tribe of northern Tanzania. And what scientists did is they went down and literally tested their metabolism. How many calories are these tribes people burning? Now consider, these are modern hunter-gatherers. So what does that mean? They don't have computers and TVs and couches. They're walking, gathering, running a lot. I mean, the way that you hunt when you're a modern hunter-gatherer is you hide, you throw a spear at an animal, and then you run after it until it gets tired. So you run for 10, 15 miles, right? So lots and lots and lots of activity. And what they found at the end of the study was that these modern hunter-gatherers burned similar calories on a daily basis to the average couch potato in America. And you think, well, how's that possible? Well, because our bodies they evolved to adapt that way. If those modern hunter-gatherers were burning 10,000 calories a day, we would have gone extinct a long time ago. It's so hard to find food in nature.
Right. Where are they going to be eating nutrient-dense foods that gives them 10,000 plus calories a day?
It's not going to happen. And so our bodies adapted. So our bodies adapt and slow down. So it's just that wrong form of exercise. Really what we should be doing is training our bodies to burn more calories. Train our bodies to be resilient to modern life, which is sedentary. Now, what are the challenges of a sedentary life? And I want to be very clear, by the way, movement is good for you. So I'm not trying to say cardio has no value. All forms of exercise have value. I'm just saying if you pick one form of exercise and you're only going to work out a couple days a week or a few days a week, make it strength training because it's actually going to work for you. Other forms of exercise won't. Movement is always good for you. But here's the deal. This is the truth now. Most of us, even those of us in the fitness, look, I work out 6 or 7 days a week, Chris. I work out all the time, right? I'm lifting weights for at least an hour, hour and a half. I push the sled. I do mobility work. I probably don't hit 10,000 steps a day. If I were to track my steps, besides my workout, the rest of my day is sitting down, doing interviews, doing podcasts, making content. Most people are like that, and most people don't even work out 6 or 7 days a week. So we're just not active. Modern life is designed to be set. We've done a great job of taking the hard work, the hard physical work out of daily life. So how the hell can we protect ourselves? Well, we can either find a way to move all day long. Good luck. Not going to happen. We're too busy sitting down, working on our computer, doing other stuff. Not going to happen. So the other option is to build a body that's resilient to being sedentary. Well, what's the best way to do that? Have muscle. Studies are clear on this. When people go to a hospital and have to be bedridden because of an injury or an illness, people with more muscle do way better. Muscle is very protective against a sedentary life. It's insulin sensitive. It burns calories just sitting there. It's very expensive tissue. And here's the best part, and a lot of people don't talk about this, it's the only form of exercise. There's no form of exercise that directly does this. It's the only form of exercise that induces youthful levels of hormones. Okay? Nothing else does this. Now, other forms of exercise may do this indirectly by improving your health, maybe. But in fact, cardiovascular activity has actually been shown to do the opposite in men in particular. Lots of cardio will lower testosterone levels. Strength training doesn't. Strength training directly induces kind of these youthful levels of hormones. So in men, if a man starts doing strength training just twice a week, they notice pretty consistently an increase in testosterone. By the way, this is regardless of your testosterone levels. Low, middle, high, you'll see an increase in testosterone. You also see an increase in androgen receptor density. So these are the receptors that testosterone attaches to. This is a very good thing. The more androgen receptors you have, the more potent your current levels of testosterone are. It raises growth hormone. It causes better cortisol responses. Resistance training and strength training does this. Of course, I talked about insulin sensitivity. In women, you see a balance of estrogen and progesterone. So the question that tends to follow is why? Why does strength training or resistance training do this? And why do other forms of exercise not do this? Remember, we have to look at exercise and really look at the adaptations that it induces. The main adaptation of strength training or resistance training is to build muscle. What is required to build muscle? When your body wants to build muscle, it needs youthful levels of hormones. You can't have high cortisol and build muscle, right? You can't have insulin resistance and build muscle. You can't have low testosterone and build muscle. You can't have an imbalance of estrogen and progesterone if you're a woman and build muscle. So directly what ends up happening, because you're sending the signal to the body that says, we need more muscle, we need more strength, the body starts to organize the hormones in a way to make that happen. So that's one of the beautiful effects of strength training or resistance training. Other forms of exercise, they don't do this. They just simply do not do this. So the book that I wrote really is about trying to create this revolution around resistance training, because still today, even men, even the average guy, I'm not talking about the guy that wants to look like, Arnold or Sylvester Stallone or wants to look like an action hero. The average guy, 45 years old, 50 years old, goes to the doctor says you have high blood pressure, you should start exercising. If you approach him and say, hey, you should go lift weights, he'd be like, oh, no, I don't want to get big. I just want to get healthy. The average person has no idea. They have no idea that they're not doing the one activity that really has the best chances of solving all of these problems. So what I'm trying to do is cause this revolution so that the average person says, that's why my attempts have failed. I didn't do that one form of exercise that just kicks the crap out of all these other forms of exercise. Now, of course, ideally, you want to have a well-balanced routine. You want to have a strength component, which should be the foundation of your workout, and then on top of it, a cardio component and a flexibility component, whatnot. But again, the most we can hope for with the average person is about 2 or 3 days a week. They're going to do one form of exercise for about 45 minutes. Which one should they do? Which one's going to give them the most returns? Which one's going to give them the most long-term success, burn the most fat, improve the hormones the best, improve their health the best? Strength training, resistance training. That's the form of exercise they should pick.
Thank you so much for listening to the Strong by Design podcast. To help our show reach more listeners just like you, please let us know how we've changed your life by leaving a 5-star rating and review on iTunes. Go to strongbydesignpodcast.com. That's strongbydesignpodcast.com. Let's get back to the show.
And there's been a lot out there. There's so many people with the marketing behind whatever their strength product is or strength tool is. This is the only way to truly build muscle. You must use. I've found that it's the one that people will do and the one that they find that they enjoy. No one's going to stick long term with something they can't stand. So I think the key for a lot of people is to gravitate or to be able to, maybe as a trainer, but to be able to do something that you enjoy, that you will stick with. If it's barbell, then have success doing barbell training. If it's dumbbell, if it's kettlebell, if it's med ball, if it's sandbag, if it's a combination of those things. If it's resistance based, you can have great success with it if you're following a program that's sensible.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to just be one thing. There's not just one way to get there.
No, there's another myth around resistance training is that it's so complex and I need to train with so much intensity and I need to, none of that's true. Now, of course, if you're at an advanced level and you're a strength athlete or whatever, of course, the more advanced you get, the more advanced your workout has to get, the more it takes to get your body to improve even more. If you're really, really strong already, to get even stronger, it's going to take much more specific focus than if you're just looking for overall health. But really, for the average person, it's very simple, very basic. Literally, this is literally it. And you named it, by the way. It doesn't matter. You can use weights. I love weights because I think dumbbells and barbells are so versatile. They adjust to the person. So short, tall, movement issues, whatever, they adjust to you. They're inexpensive. So I like weights. But honestly, it doesn't matter. Bands, body weight, machines, weights, all of them can be used quite effectively. But here's what you got to do, literally. You either go to the gym or do this at home, pick 3 or 4 exercises, make sure that they're these kind of full body type movements like squatting, overhead pressing, deadlifting. This is lifting something off the floor, maybe some kind of a rotation movement. Just pick 4 or 5 basic exercises and then do this. Practice them. That's it. You work, today's workout day. What am I going to do? Don't think to yourself, oh, I need to hammer my legs because it's leg day or whatever. Think to yourself, I'm going to practice squatting and get better at squatting. Instead of saying, oh, I'm going to do a shoulder exercise. Don't do that. Think, I'm going to do an overhead press movement and just practice it. Just practice. Treat your strength training like practice a few days a week and watch what happens. You're much more likely to train with the appropriate intensity. You will see progress. You'll train with great form and technique. This is another hallmark of resistance training that other forms of exercise tend to lack. It's the form of exercise where form and technique is most important, or I should say most communicated, Other forms of exercise, not so much. I mean, people run every single day. I tell you what, I see people running all the time, and I almost never see anybody running well. Running is a skill that humans evolved to do, but nobody does it well because we stop running when we're 10, and it's a skill that we forget, and then we think we just put our shoes on and run until we're tired. Really, what you should do if you want to run is get good at running, right? Practice the skill of it. That'll make it more effective. This is communicated with strength training often. It's like form, technique. The best way to do that is practice. Just go to the gym or do this at home. Don't think I got to go hard. I got to get super sore. Think to yourself, I'm going to do a few sets of squats and I'm going to perfect my form. Okay, now I'm going to move to the bench press and I'm going to perfect my form. Do a few sets there. Now I'm going to go to the cable row or the machine row or dumbbell row or the band row, and I'm going to perfect my form and get really good at it.
Yeah.
Here's a rule of thumb for most people. And again, I'm speaking to the average person who wants to improve their health, lose some weight, and feel better. Okay, you should feel more energy and better at the very end of your workout than you did when you first entered into it. You should not finish your workout and feel like you need to go lay down on the couch or take a day off because you just beat yourself up. That means you did too much. By the way, the best dose of exercise is the right dose. Anything over than the right dose just gets you there slower. It doesn't get you there any faster. So if you think to yourself like, oh, I did this workout and I feel really good, but I think I want to get faster results, so I'm just going to beat myself up, you won't get there any faster. The right dose is the best dose. You shouldn't be sore after your workout, or if you are, it should be very minimal. You should feel more energy at the end of the workout than you did going into it, and you should practice the exercise rather than working out. Do that, and you'll get great long-term results with resistance training.
Yeah, no, it's concrete advice. It makes so much sense, obviously, to you and to me, and I think to people listening, it can maybe shake them up and be a little bit of a wake-up call, and maybe even make them feel like, oh, really? So it's just about me showing up, putting in the work, getting the reps, and doing it consistently over time. Yes, that's what we're telling you. There's no magic pill in this area of health. It really is just gravitating to something that gets you excited to move, and then move frequently. Meaning multiple times a week, and it doesn't need to be hours a day, as you've just stated. You can have an amazing workout in 20 minutes if you're doing the right stuff.
Yeah, and with strength training, really, if you like to do other forms of exercise, first off, do the one that you pick the form of exercise you enjoy doing the most, because you're more likely to be consistent. But with strength training and resistance training, even 1 day a week, that's it. 1 day a week would give you plenty of results, for the average person. Really, I trained so many people who otherwise were active, so they did hiking and cycling and other things, and they loved doing those things. And they would 1 day a week, we would do strength training. Yeah. That's it, 1 day a week. Phenomenal results. The metabolism got faster, great strength. Of course, they sculpted their bodies as a result of it. And all we did was we'd meet up once a week and we would do a few basic exercises and we would practice them and get better at them over the years.
It's very true, and it's not. People sometimes just need to be realistic with their approach to things, and when they get going with something, just get going. Don't build it up to something that's so great and so unbelievable that it becomes almost it stops you from moving. It stops you from going. Take small bites. Take small bites. Just get going today or tomorrow. Pick, like Sal said, 3-4 exercises that are kind of hit your body in different ways. But I mean, obviously, check out Sal's book, The Resistance Training Revolution. We'll give them links and stuff in just a bit. But I want to fire off some quick questions to you.
Okay.
These are not going to take very much thought on your end, and just for people to get a little bit more of your personality, and these are fun.
Okay.
So we got 5 quick ones for you, and then we'll give them some places to go to find you. Number 1, what's your favorite time to train?
6 or 7 a.m. I like to work out in the morning. I have a family I have 3 kids, a business, and it's easy for me to be consistent if I work out first thing in the morning and then get to my day.
Yeah, it's a great point to make, because for so many people, once they get going in their day, it's hard to find that time. So oftentimes with busy people, family people, dads, moms, a lot going on, it's almost easier just to get up a little earlier and get something in, whether it's in your living room or in your neighborhood, or you stop at the gym on the way to your office or something. That oftentimes can be the best time, because it's done. And then you're energized for the day.
Yes.
I mean, the side effect is, like Sal said, that all-day energy where you're just feeling awesome and electric because you got your workout in. Number 2, name the meal that gets you drooling.
Boy, I can't eat it just because I can't tolerate dairy, but I love good pizza. Man, a good authentic, though. It's got to be authentic Italian pizza. So thin, fresh sauce, mozzarella, very, very, not like a ton of stuff on it, just very fresh, simple. That's the best.
It is the best. That's pretty much my pick, unless my mom was making a meatloaf, and I had meatloaf and mashed potato. I'm kind of like one of those meat and potatoes guys. Number 3, favorite person in the fitness industry, dead or alive?
Oh, Jack LaLanne. That's easy. He was great message. Great. He was so ahead of his time. And oh my gosh, if you look at his feats of athletic performance, it's and many of them are captured on film. Mind blowing. I mean, you won't even believe some of the stuff that this guy did when he was 50, 70, 80. It's like, what the hell is going on? It's crazy.
It's unbelievable. I was reading up on him not that long ago, and it's mind-blowing. Jack LaLanne, for any of you young people out there who don't know who he is, he's kind of like the father of fitness, father of aerobics. He's unbelievable. So that's pretty cool. Number 4, what popular exercise should be scrapped?
I'm going to say none. All exercises, if performed with good mobility, good stability, good control, good strength, are safe, and they all have some value so long as they're done appropriately. So, the thing that annoys, I guess, the pet peeves that I have are when I see people placing value on exercises for things that they don't have value for. Like when I see women want to build their butt and they end up doing, body weight donkey kickbacks, and they're doing 1,000 reps, like terrible exercise for building your butt. Like do some heavy hip thrusts or squats, and then you'll end up building, more of a butt. So that I would say that's the biggest pet peeve I have with exercises.
Number 5, your favorite activity to do with your kids? Obviously, exercise based.
It has to be exercise based. My kids hate that.
Well, you could go two directions. What gets you moving with your kids and sweating, and then what's just something fun that you like to do with them?
If we're moving, it's probably in the pool. They like to be in the pool, so that's when I'll get them to move. Otherwise, training them has been real hard because I'm dad, so it's like it ends up turning into like dad telling me what to do type of deal. In fact, I hired a trainer for my son so that I didn't have to deal with it, and it's much more effective that way. But active thing, we love watching good movies together. It's something we've always done since they were little. So,
yeah, that's awesome. Same here. Have you seen the movie The Millers versus the Machines yet?
Oh yeah,
animated.
Oh yeah, so good.
Isn't that great?
Oh yeah, it was really good.
My kids love that one. My son had watched it, and then he's like, "I want us all to watch it as a family." I said, "Okay," and we loved it.
Yeah. I just watched that maybe a few weeks ago. It was really good.
It is really good. It's a Netflix original, I think. So for all you listeners out there, go check that one out. So I promised you some links here. So first, all of you interested in what Sal's been talking about and his brand new book, The Resistance Training Revolution, that's the link. TheResistanceTrainingRevolution.com. That's where you want to go to find out more, to get your copy, and to read up on everything we've just been discussing here. And then on Instagram, you can find more about Sal if you go to @MindPumpSal. But if you obviously anything Mind Pump, if you just type Mind Pump into any platform, they got a YouTube. They're on Facebook. They're everywhere. So that's where you're going to find Sal and the gang and everything that they are putting out into the world. Some just terrific content, and just so appreciate you being on Strong by Design.
Cool. Thanks for having me on, Chris. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. Thank you so much, listeners, for taking this time to, again, choose our show. Now would be a great time to hit that 5-star rating and or review. And please share this conversation with somebody. Just hit those 3 little dots and share it with a friend, a family member, a neighbor, somebody that maybe in your life needs a little bit more movement and needs to hear a conversation like this that'll get them up and active and doing something good for them. Thank you so much, and we appreciate every single listener that we have on Strong by Design. We'll talk to you next week. God bless you.
Thank you so much for listening to the Strong by Design podcast. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe so that more people can find out about our show. Plus, you don't want to miss any future episodes with the amazing guests and topics we have lined up for you.